Welcome everyone to After Awakening. It's our first episode in a long time, and we're here with a meditation teacher, Vedanta teacher, Morgan Smith. Morgan, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm a little under the weather, as I was telling you before, but so overall, emotional, and mental, I'm great.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on. Anyways, despite feeling under the weather, you and I met on Clubhouse. I think the first time I had you come into a room or saw you in a room was probably 8 months ago.
Yeah,
and there were some
yeah.
there are some things that you've said that I found very compelling. You've delineated the differences between waking up and growing up, and you've also had a very profound awakening yourself that happened, I believe, in 2019. So just to let the viewers know, how did you get started on the path? This might be a long segment, right? Like what led up to your actual right? What led up to your actual awakening and what the moment was like? So
yeah. Well, even though I had the big blowout in 2019, I've had many prior to that. The one that happened in 2019 was the one that felt like the search has ended. But I've been having non-dual experiences and Turiya and Turiya experiences at lower levels that were so profound since 2008. So first time it happened was in 2008. Next time it happened was in I think it was 2010. And it was 2010, and then it started happening consistently throughout that whole time period. And then on December 14th of 2019, the thing that I have no words to describe, not that I can describe any of them, but something that was different about that one, because it was the full-blown experience where I haven't had one since then. I've had many experiences since then, but not like that. So yeah, but my journey starts back in 2004. It's 2004. I think it was 2004. My background, well, I'll say first, I'm grew up in a Pentecostal church. My father's a church minister, so that was my life from probably age 3 till about 18. 18, I left home and started to seek my own path. But it was many years after that when I started to do meditation and things of that sort. So, so my background, as again, Pentecostal Christian. But when I left, I got into the music business. That didn't work out too well for me. Well, it did on some level, but there was some bad contracts that were signed, and I didn't know any better and got caught up in a bad deal, and all that stuff pretty much crumbled. So I went into stand-up comedy. So I became a stand-up comic and did a comedy for 12 years. During that time period, I had a popular TV show in Canada, won awards, did all that stuff. Great experience, but of course, something there wasn't fulfilling. There's something there. I felt that at some point I hit a crossroads, and I needed something more. So I have a friend, because most of my friends are in the entertainment business and still are. She was telling me about hypnotherapy. She was going through the audition process. She was auditioning for a part or for a TV role or something like that, and she claimed that she used she went to a hypnotherapist to help her with doing that, be able to accomplish doing the audition. So I asked her about it, and I said, you know what, I wonder if a hypnotherapist can help me with creativity, because having a successful TV show for 9 years out of the 12 years that I was doing stand-up, it's running out of ideas and stuff like that. So you always have to refresh and try to expose yourself to as much things as possible and try to come up with more ideas. And so after a while, it just got really difficult. So I decided to go to a hypnotherapist. And when I went to this hypnotherapist, they were using light and sound machines. So for those that don't know, light and sound machines, it's based on binaural beat technology. So in the ear, you play the binaural tones, and in the eyes, there's flashing lights. So they would use these machines to put people in certain states of consciousness. So I was really intrigued by that. So when he would use this device on me, I realized that I was coming up with a lot of creative outbursts and things like that. It was amazing. I was able to write new bits. I was able to even add new stuff to the bits that I was already doing, and I was able to elaborate and add to that. It was amazing. It was just, and then one day it just stopped, and I was like, oh gosh, what happened? The creative juices has stopped flowing. I need more ideas. So I started looking into if there were other types of binaural beat programs that I wasn't aware of. So eventually I found a binaural beat program, which is called HoloSync, which is produced by Centerpoint Research by the late Bill Harris. So I went online, I found the website, and I read the information that was there, but the information that they put in there was like too good to be true. But I was intrigued enough to say, you know what, I'm going to try this. It was a pretty expensive program, so I decided to order the sample that they were giving out, free sample. So I ordered that. The sample came in. Of course, the sample is just selling you on the idea of what it is, and trying to get your money, that type of thing. So I did the sample, and nothing major happened. But I was intrigued enough to order the actual program. So I ordered the program. Weeks later, it came in, and I put on back then it was CDs, of course, CDs and Walkmans and all that. So I put in the CD in my Walkman, and started meditating. It's really simple to do. All you got to do is sit up with your eyes closed, and let the binaural beat do its thing. And then when I was doing this, something started happening above my crown chakra. I felt this pulsing feeling, which I've never felt before with the light and sound machines. And I was like, whoa. So I said, I'm gonna continue with this. So I kept doing this thing every day. As I was doing this every day, all of these weird things started happening. So one of the things that would happen, every time I say it, I chuckle every time I say it, but the one of the major things that happened is I woke up having a wet dream, which is weird. I just woke up, wet dream, and I was like, what the hell is going on? I didn't know much about about meditation yet and all the stuff that it can bring up out of
We call that purification.
Purification, exactly. That's right. Purification. So that was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened was I woke up one day, and for about a week, almost a week, I had the fear of the outdoors. I was just afraid to go outside. Yeah, it was crazy. But it also linked to my childhood. When I was a child, my father didn't allow us to go outside much because my family, they're from Jamaica, and when they came here, from their standpoint, everything was a threat to them. So he was always trying to protect his kids, but he was very strict, and he didn't really go about it the right way. But that was his way of trying to protect us. So we were always inside, and that always made me upset, and my sisters, because we weren't able to go outside and play with our friends and things of that nature. And also, he wouldn't allow us to play with people that weren't part of our Christian background. So yeah, very biased on that level. Yeah. So I wake up one day, I have this phobia. I'm afraid to go outside. I can't even look out the window. And I was like, what? This is insane. This is insane. After a while, that cleared up, came back to normal. But as a stand-up comic, I also had a fear of going on stage. So when that experience ended, I had to do a show. And when I got to the show, I was afraid to do it. I was frightened, like scared shitless. I couldn't. Yeah, it was just. And I was like, what's going on with me? Why can't I? Can't, yeah. So all that type of stuff. So that cleared up eventually. And then all these other weird things started happening. I'd wake up and I'd be in total bliss. One time I woke up. A lot of the experiences would happen in my sleep as I wake up, which was really weird. So one day I woke up and I was intoxicated, and I don't drink. For everyone that knows me, I don't drink alcohol. So I woke up and I was totally intoxicated. I was pissed drunk. Yeah, and I'm like, this is incredible. Yeah, so I just kept going with it. I just kept meditating, doing my hour every day. Never missed a day. I haven't missed a day till this day.
Of HoloSync.
Well, no, after a while it changed, but I'll get to that. But HoloSync, I stopped at a certain point, and I created my own. But I'll get to that. But I always, every single day, I would do a binaural beat program, which became my program that I started doing. So all these weird things started happening. My show came to an end, and I didn't have that desire to do any more stand-up or anything like that. So I pretty much just retired from the whole business. So even though at the time that wasn't the goal, I thought I was going to take a temporary leave. Yeah, I thought I was going to take a temporary leave. So I took 2 years off, and after when the 2-year mark came about, I decided I was going to leave the whole business and get into something else. So I decided to go into nonprofit. So I get into the nonprofit sector where I became a youth worker. Still meditating, do all that stuff. But after a while, I decided I wanted to combine holosync with other practices. So I started doing. Someone introduced me to a book, and I started doing some sexual Qigong practices. It's like their Qigong version of tantric. So I started practicing that for just a few weeks, still doing holosync. And one day I go to sleep, I wake up, and I'm having a full body orgasm from head to toe. Like absolute, the greatest sex I've ever had in my life with no partner whatsoever. Yeah, it was just absolutely mind blowing, and it lasted for 4 hours.
Wow. I can't imagine that.
Yeah, full body orgasm from head to toe for 4 hours. Yeah, the most mind blowing, body blowing at that time experience of my life. I remember when the experience when it went away, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that was insane. But it never happened again for a very long time. I kept on meditating, kept doing meditation, and then I said, I want to combine meditation with entheogens. Something just came to me. It's like, what if I did the two together? What would happen? So I spoke to a friend of mine. He got me some stuff, and then I started experimenting. And I realized that when I did the entheogens along with the binaural beats, along with holosync, the experiences enhanced. So I was blown away by these experiences. I kept doing that on and off for about maybe 2 years or so, probably 2 years or so. And then in 2008, while I was meditating, I hit scream entry.
Mm.
Yeah, but I didn't have that kind of information back then. I didn't know anything about scream entry. I didn't know anything about spiritual enlightenment. I didn't know anything about it. None of those things I knew about.
You also define this as Turiya, correct? Or is this different?
I would put in the category of Turiya, but because I had so many experiences after that, I would say it was more of a Godhead experience. But the closest I can put is to Turiya. So yeah, so that's what I put it in that category. That experience alone just changed my life.
Right.
When that took place. That alone, even if nothing ever happened after that, I was good. I was just totally blown away what took place, and I never experienced that before. But the problem was I didn't know who to tell this to. So I waited about 2 weeks just to make sure I wasn't going crazy, just to make sure I wasn't going insane. And then after the 2-week mark, I went and told a coworker of mine of what took place. I knew he wouldn't judge me. So I told him, and he was just like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, I can't even explain this experience, but I had the experience of being God, something like that. I kept trying it, and it never worked again. I kept trying it. I couldn't get back that experience. And then 2 years went by. But I should say, before I even get there, what did happen after that experience, something changed. So my perspective changed on life. And that's when a lot of the insights started pouring out of my head. And I started writing these insights. And first I was going around and talking to students at Catholic schools about this experience, but I acted like it was that it was in the third person. So I never said it was me. I just said there's these experiences that take place that people can tap into until I got comfortable with the idea. As time went on, the insights were pouring in. My view on life changed. It was easy for me to see how everything was the same thing. Everything was non-dual, even though I've never heard the word non-dual at that point. All that stuff became easy, and that happened within just that one session. But of course, just like with everything else, dark night of the soul took place. I wasn't ready for that. So I'm still doing this meditation, doing holosync. And at this point, I started to create my own version. So I went and took lessons with a number of people, and started to learn how to make these binaural beats on my own. But I want mine to be slightly different than holosync. I didn't want it to be the same thing because Bill Harris had his thing. So I wanted to come up with something that I could do. So one time I was introduced to a mathematician by the name of Marco Rodin. And Marco Rodin is he's a mystical mathematician. And his claim was that the universe has an algorithm, and the algorithm is 124875. So 124875, the middle algorithm is 693396, and the ending algorithm is 578421. If you figure out how to use that algorithm, regardless if it's making computers, binary code, transformers like for computers, his claim was that you could use this math for anything if you can figure out how to use it. So it took me about 2 years to figure it out, how I could apply it to binaural beats. And I used the information that I had about holosync in terms of bringing brainwave frequencies from beta, alpha, theta, delta, epsilon, and so on, and also the carrier frequencies, because what makes holosync powerful is they tap into these carrier frequencies. So the lower the carrier frequency, the stronger the sounds. So there's a bit of math that you have to learn in sound physics that you have to learn to put it together successfully. So I did that. 2-year mark, I figured out how to do that, and I put together my first version. At the time, I think I called it neural funk or something like that. Eventually became holosync. Eventually became Yinergy. That's what it became. But at that time, I was calling it that. So I'm doing my version of this thing now, and I'm going through physical pain. Sometimes that would come up where, and this was happening from almost the beginning, where I would get these pains in my kidneys, and I called up Centerpoint Research to find out what was going on, and they said that because of your purification, the kidneys represent shame towards your father or something like that. So I started looking into that to see, because I didn't have a great relationship with my dad. So I started looking into trying to see if I could do some healing in that regard. This pain would happen on and off for years. Yeah, but I'll probably get into that. And it still happens now, even though the last time it happened, it was 7 years ago. And just recently, in the last 2 months, it started happening again, but in my other kidney, not my left kidney, but my right kidney. So it's very interesting how that works. And of course, I've gone to doctors for the last 18 years, and no one can figure out what it is. They said there's nothing wrong with your kidneys, nothing. You have perfect kidneys. There's nothing wrong with you, whatever. I'm like, I keep getting these pains. So I started looking into what they called Kundalini syndromes, and
Yes.
and that explained, at least based on my belief system, explained what that could be. But the whole Dark Night of the Soul thing started happening.
Oh, wait. Let me dial back, because we're getting into the Dark Knight, but I want to touch on the stream entry point. So
Okay.
when you entered the stream and actually had this irreversible shift, you also said you tried to get back there but couldn't. What happened in that specific moment?
Oh, in the moment of stream entry?
Yeah.
How do I explain that? Best way I can describe that, because it's hard, I can't even put it in words. At that time anyway, it felt like everything became everything.
Mm.
Yeah, so everything just became everything. I was the plants, I was every life form, every insect, every microscopic creature. I was the earth itself, I was the galaxy, I was everything. That was absolutely mind-blowing. I remember in that moment saying, "Oh gosh, I am it," or something like that. But it's really hard to explain, because it's how would I? Yeah, it's extremely difficult.
Being
extremely
the
difficult. Yeah,
being the
it's one of those
Godhead.
Yeah, it's past, present, and future. Everything happened within that space.
Hmm.
Not realizing that an experience like that can actually, that is infinite, that it can keep going on and on and on and on and on. Because at that time period, it was so magnificent and everything. I didn't think that anything could be beyond that. But as time went on, it went even past that. Yeah. So, but at that time, that's what it was. But it was so profound that I gave up meat. But yeah, that's what happened. I gave up meat. I became a vegetarian when that happened, and it's still one to this day. I became vegan eventually, but that took place after that experience. I couldn't eat meat anymore.
Hmm. And did this happen in meditation or just spontaneously?
The feeling of not having meat.
No, the entering the stream of enlightenment.
That happened with a combination of holosync, the first one, in 2008 with psilocybin. So that's what happened in that experience. But I can tell you this, because I'm trying to remember. I remember sitting there doing holosync, and I wasn't advancing. I wasn't moving up the different stages. I wasn't moving up. All these, I would have all these experiences of like multidimensional type beings and reptilians and all this stuff would pop into my vision. And I would say, I'm not impressed. I want more. I want more. I want more. I remember doing that. I want more. And then the meditation stopped. The hour was over and nothing happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like, oh, all that work for nothing. And as soon as I said that, boom, it happened. Yeah.
And when that I am everything awakening happened, how long did that last? And at what point did Morgan come back to the forefront of consciousness, if Morgan returned to the forefront of consciousness?
Like 3 hours later.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, 3 hours later. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 hours of infinity. So one of the things that you and I were discussing is that when I survey a lot of the practitioners that I know and teachers that I've known over the years, these types of really big openings happen after the 10-year mark. So when did this happen to you in relation to when you actually began? Because I think this is good to help people understand, like, not have unrealistic expectations. People start meditating and like they want this within like 3 months.
Very unlikely. It took 5 years for me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The 5 year mark is when that happened. And the second time it happened was at the 7-year mark.
And how old were you? Do you remember?
36.
Wow.
Yeah.
So stream entry happens, you become the Godhead, and then you enter the dark night. Can you talk about that?
Well, the dark night happened some years later. So it didn't happen right away. That took a while for that to happen. And when that started happening, that was very painful, very mentally painful. Things like anger would come up, of course, anger, shame, guilt, certain types of trauma that I wasn't aware of. So there was trauma that I was aware of, but it was deep rooted. And then there was other types of trauma that I wasn't even aware of at all, and came to the realization that I was afraid of certain things that stopped me from succeeding, reaching certain goals and stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff would happen. After that, and that happened for years. That happened for years, on and off for years. It's not like I was constantly in these states for long periods of time. It would happen they would happen for like a few hours here, and it would happen again months later, and things of that sort. And then the dark night of the spirit thing happened, where I was taking on the pain and suffering of everyone and everything. So that happened too. As time went on, when I had those experiences, because they would happen all the time. First, when I had these experiences, the dark night of the soul and dark night of the spirit, I couldn't break into any of these higher states. I couldn't break. But
it was like you got the power pulled from you.
Yeah, it's like, here you and you're like, oh, it's very, very painful stuff. And then as time went on, I was able to, those experiences would happen, and then I would break. And and that paid off. So I had no problems of going through any of the dark nights, as long as I had the break. And most of the times I would have the break.
Because you'd have this, correct me if I'm wrong, there would be this dip where the dark night, the intensity of that, whatever it is that's coming up, is there, and then as soon as it passes, there's an increase, right? It goes back up. Was that how it was for you?
Yeah,
after you process
something like that, it would dip, it would hit rock bottom, like total rock bottom. It was like experiencing a mental type hell. Of course, not the lake of fire, brimstone, nothing like that, but this emotional, mental hell. In these realms, I even experienced all types of mental illness and things of that sort too. So all that stuff would come up. The stuff is very sensitive, so I got to be careful with. But everything would happen. So every negative thing that you can possibly think of would happen. So like torture would happen, rape would happen, everything. I could experience and feel everyone that was going through something. So genocide,
Yep.
rape, assassinations. I could experience the slaughtering of animals. I can experience that too. I can even experience an ant being stepped on. I could feel that too. All these things happened, and it just kept going and going and going. Just very, very painful stuff. And then
This happened in meditation or outside of meditation too?
both.
Right.
Yeah, both. Yeah, and then I'd come out of it, and then it will go back up again. I'll break, and then it'll be like the most magnificent thing of my life at that point. And yeah, so all that type of stuff would happen. It happened over and over and over and over again throughout the years.
When you mentioned Turiya and Turiya Tita, can you define that or help us understand what that means?
Well, there is the states of consciousness. So there's five states. Is it five? Five states. So there's waking, like as right now we're awake. There's waking. There's sleeping or dreaming. So that's another state. So that's number two, state two. There's the dreamless sleep. Oh, so that's three. And then four is Turiya, and Turiya just means Turiya actually means fourth. So that's what Turiya actually means. It means fourth. And at Turiya, you can go into the state of being the divine witness.
Yes.
Yeah, of watching the manifestation of everything that's arising.
So this is considered Atman, right?
Yeah, you can say it's Atman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Atman. And then after that, the fifth state is Tita, which is the absolute non-dual state. And then Tita has different levels.
Yeah, Tita is classified as Brahman, correct? And then, for example, Nirvikalpa Samadhi is within there.
Yeah, Nirvikalpa Samadhi is all in there. And in Turiya, at Turiya, what was I going to say about Turiya? The lower levels of Samadhi are in there, and so on and so on. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
But Turiya also has levels too. So there's different levels of Turiya. That's why I hesitated earlier when we were talking about supreme entry, when you asked me about was I in Turiya, and I think about it, I'm like, gosh, was I? Because it's there's different levels of it. So after a while, it kind of like outdoes the other one, and then it just keeps going up. So after a while, it's like, well, yeah, it's like I think it was Turiya, but when you hit higher levels Turiya, and you should say, oh, that's Turiya, and then you go in again, you're like, oh, that's Turiya, and so on and so on and so on. Yeah.
Awesome. So this initial becoming the Godhead happens, and I think you said 2009, right?
2008.
2008. Okay. So then you start cycling through the dark night processing. Were there any notable things or really notable awakenings that stood out between 2008 and 2019? Because this is an 12-year cycle here between the first awakening and the most profound one that you ever had. What would you say was in between that really sticks out?
They all do.
How many were there? Were there like 10 pivotal moments? 3?
No, probably like 50, 55.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were all just absolutely profound. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And these were different samadhis or different insights. How do you classify all of these?
Some of them were the same at the level of samadhi, but I'm not well versed in all the different labels of samadhi.
Sure.
But yeah, there's different levels of that of samadhi. Some of them, like at the level of Turiya, some things were seen where you'd actually see the divine or see something that's divine. And then after, when you get into Turiya or Turiya Tita, I should say, you don't see anything. There's nothing to see. So there's like a big bright light, like I don't know, like many thousands of suns.
Ocean of 10 billion suns, infinite light, sort of thing.
Yeah. It's like an ocean type. It's like a dry ocean because it's not wet. It's like this dry ocean, and then you become the ocean. First, you're swimming in it, and then your ego just shatters within. It just dissolves in the ocean, and then you realize you're the actual ocean.
Right.
Yeah, and then at that level of Turiya Tita, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, from there.
Yeah, But at this point, I'm also doing other things where I'm doing yoga. I did some training with yoga teacher Krishna Kerr. So I was doing all that yoga. I was doing neurofeedback training. I was doing entheogens. I was doing energy meditation at this point, which I always done, and other practices too. What's another thing I was doing? Electromagnetic pulsing. I did some of that stuff.
Right, for the brain.
For the brain, but also for the body. So
Mm.
like you can put them underneath your feet, under the sole of your feet, and it can stimulate the meridians and stuff in your feet, which allows you to clear out some of the blockages as well, but at different levels. There's so many different types of energy programs that I made. So I made one, of course, that took you from from beta down to delta. I made ones that went down to epsilon. I made some that went up to gamma, hyper gamma, lambda.
Wow.
I made some recently. I made some that goes down to the default mode frequencies. So they discovered there's default mode frequencies as well, and below that there's iota frequencies. So yeah, so I experimented with all these different types of frequencies and stuff like that. Yeah.
So in 2019, you described like the most profound experience you ever had. What was that? How is it different from the previous cycles of awakening?
The funny thing about that is, anytime I tell this, anyone who I tell this to, they say, "But Morgan, that sounds like the same. That sounds the same as all the other experiences that you had." So but it's not. It's just I can't find the words. But what happened in that experience? I always tear up every time I try to tell the story because that's how profound it was. So I'm gonna try not to cry.
It's okay if you want to cry. I'm all for it.
Try not to. I'm trying not to. I bawled my eyes out telling the story at another organization a few days ago. So
Wow.
like, yeah, and they were all touched and moved by it. But I'll try to see how I can. So, and I wish I was feeling better so I can really get into this. But it was so past, present, future became one thing. Past, present, future became one thing. Time and space became one thing. The Big Bang and all the Big Bangs prior to that became one thing. The destruction of the whole entire universe became the same thing as the birth of the universe. All planets, all solar systems, all galaxies, multiverses all became one thing. I was every birth and every death of anyone and everything that's ever lived. A tenth of a second was exactly the same as a trillion years. God and man totally the same, but of course, when I say God, I don't mean God in the traditional religious sense, of course. But it all became one thing. It was one of those, and I used the word experience, but it wasn't an experience because my ego shattered. There was no Morgan left.
Gone. Nothing.
Gone. Yet it was there from the sense that everyone's manifestation of ego was in this mix, in this bowl of soup, if you want to call it that. Everything that I've ever known shattered. Everything. Yeah, I just don't have the energy, but it was. Gosh, I can't. It was non-dual, beyond non-dual, beyond non-dual. I understood in that moment when they call it Brahman, but this was Brahman, or what they say in English, Parabrahma.
Right.
It was at that level, but at the same time, it was also a no self. So both became one thing. It was beyond non-dual, yet it was non-dual. Everything was in it when it was within it. Turiya, everything, the cycle of death and birth collapsed, and it was pure nirvana. It was, it was pure nirvana, moksha, everything. I was able to totally, fully escape the cycle of death and rebirth in that moment. It was one of those experiences that if you actually saw my physical body, I'm having a full seizure in this moment. So a full seizure is taking place. I'm falling apart. I can't control any of my limbs. I can't control any of my body parts, nothing. Everything just became this thing, to the point where I felt like I was a python snake. My whole entire body became like this snake-like thing. But it wasn't just my body, it was everything that was in the room. Everything became this thing. And then in that moment, the non-dual experience ended. And it was just pure Kundalini. So all my cells, all my molecules, all my atoms, all my particles and subatomic particles all blossomed and became these crystal-like flowers. Throughout every single part of me just opened up. On the top of my head, you know how they talk about the 1,000 petals. My experience wasn't 1,000 petals. It was trillions and trillions and trillions of petals. They were just pouring out of my skull, just pouring, just over and over and over and over again. I was crying. I was laughing. I can't control any of my body movements. Everything just fell apart as yeah.
What was the context of this? Just a random meditation?
Yeah, just doing my energy, just doing a random meditation, and one day it just broke.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've had a similar, I had a near-death experience when I was 18. I ate an ounce of a mushroom called Amanita muscaria, which is a non-hallucinogenic, so I thought I'd be okay. But I wasn't. So, but it was similar to what maybe I didn't experience like the collapse of the 3 times past, present, and future, or there was no visions, there was no visionary experience there.
Yeah.
But there was this intense overcoming of really, it was like my nervous system was doused in gasoline and it was just lit on fire. And when I finally was finished being burned alive, then I just vanished into this. It was like just becoming light. That's the only way I could describe it. You become infinity, or you are infinity. Like everything that ever was, everything that is, everything that will ever happen, that has happened. It's all in that light.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the best description would be like an ocean of 10 billion suns, and that doesn't do it justice. But exactly, right? So what happened to you after this? Because for me, I've never had an experience like that again. And it didn't, and because it was a near-death experience and I was young, I didn't have the years of cultivation behind me. I woke up the next morning having survived that as the same person as I was before it. But how did it change you? What happened? What was the aftermath of that?
Well, prior to that actual experience, there were already changes that were happening because I had a number of those type of experiences, but of course, not to that degree. Even though if you asked me about those experiences back then, I'd be like, that was the most profound ever. That was the most profound ever. That was the most profound ever. And then this happened. But for me, it's tricky because in some sense you don't change. In some sense you don't change, and in another sense you do. So you can be walking around after the experience and nobody notices anything, but it looks like people are more drawn to you, but they're not noticing it. So they're more drawn to you. There's a sense of attraction there, or a level of charisma that's there that people pick up on. I lost, I hope this is temporary, but I lost sexual desire. Yeah, that just vanished.
Since then?
Yeah. But that was 2 years ago. 2 years, because today's what, the 17th? Yeah, so yeah, just a little over 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so since then, yeah, that just changed. The pandemic did nothing to me. I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't affected by it in any way. Yeah, which pisses some people off. They're like, how dare you? How could you say such a thing? I'm like, but I don't feel moved by it in any way. In a lot of cases, I'm still the same. But I tapped into other things like doing more visual arts and stuff like that. So I went, yeah. So I would do visual arts, trying to paint this picture of Tita, that type of stuff. I went out and created a program for young people, for students. So I'm in partnership with a school board, and they allowed me to take their students and give them mindfulness meditation with binaural beats. But it's a combination of urban music, because it's hard to get young people to meditate. So I came up with an idea where I combined urban music with binaural beats, and they come and join with me, and they meditate with me for a half hour. And at this point, since that time period, I started it before that experience, but I started it with similar experiences like that. So that was 3 years ago, and so I'm still doing this now. So at this point, I've worked with almost 800 students who met with me every week for 6 weeks, meditating for 30 minutes. Yeah. So that's
Wow.
I did. Yeah. During the pandemic, I created programs for the nonprofit organization I work for. I created it for the staff and for anyone in the community that wanted to do some form of mindfulness. So we did that, a number of things. I'm a writer, so I'm always writing about the insights and things of that nature. But what I learned in regards to Ken Wilber's work, that those experiences are they're like state experiences, meaning that they're temporary.
Right.
And then you have to work on the psychological part of it, which is the growth. So you have to go. So no matter how big the experience is, you come back to some degree, and you're yourself. Some things can change, but it's not like I never get angry anymore. I still get angry, but when I get angry, I become the witness. I become the watcher, watching myself going through the emotions of that. So I can be acting out whatever I'm doing. I'm not affected by it, but I'm watching myself go through it. It's hard for people to understand that, but I can be acting out, yelling, but something, a part of me is watching it all go down, and I'm not attached to it. So it's not like anger goes away and things of that nature. All that stuff stays the same. So of course, what I mentioned earlier about the desire, hopefully it's temporary. I know it doesn't always feel good to have no desire, but yeah, it's been like that for about 2 years.
So you're totally able to understand. I've written about wanting to want.
Wanting to want, yeah.
And missing having attachments, for sure.
Yeah, that comes into your being where you're like, oh gosh, I actually missed that thing. Yeah, it's a weird feeling. At the same time, it's a very freeing experience.
Absolutely.
Where it's very, it's like, oh gosh, I kind of missed that, and then you keep going back and forth. I think I'm just waiting to see how it all unfolds. Yeah.
How was your default state changed after the blowout in 2019? Like, were you in permanent non-duality after that, basically?
No, because if you stayed in a permanent non-duality state, you wouldn't be able to live. You got to be able to pay your bills, go to work and do all that stuff. So there's no way that you can be in a full non-dual state in your everyday life and continue that. But what does change, though, is your perspective on duality. That changes. When you look at duality, there's a non-dual perspective on that. But you don't stay in a non-dual state because, you couldn't live that way.
Well, I mean, by non-dual, I don't mean the blowout of not being able to function, but I just mean, like, for example, the loss of the sense of separation, or the loss of any sense of duality, but that being continuous after the fact. Was that how did Morgan really come back to the forefront even after this total, like, shattering of the self, or was it like a whisper of Morgan that returned? How was it afterwards?
Morgan is Morgan. Morgan is back.
Mm.
But my center of gravity, I would say, is different. Yeah. So Morgan's fully there. I just look at things differently. So I guess you'd say at this point, I feel that I'm at the point I could actually sit down and hang out with a clan member and not be moved by his
Wow.
racial bias.
Bigotry.
Yeah. On some level, I'd be affected by it, Morgan itself, but there's a part of me that I can be able to sit and reason with a person like that, and it'd be nothing to me. And I would test this out because I work with a lot of people who have committed certain types of crime and things of that nature. So, and I can sit there with people with very, very little judgment.
Amazing.
Yeah, that stuff has changed. Yeah.
Amazing. So from what you've studied from Ken Wilber, and from your understanding of this whole thing, from this blowout that you had in 2019, would you consider that supermind?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. Supermind. Yes. So
supermind. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the difference between, supermind as an experience and, for example, nirvikalpa samadhi, or an unfolding and awakening that is more or less permanent? Like Ramana or Nisargadatta, they talked about not being a person after the fact and continuously being in the presence of, Ramana called it the self. Nisargadatta kind of moved away from that. But what's your take on that after such a profound experience like this? Is there still greater unfolding to come to until like it's supermind all the time, even being embodied, or do you think that's kind of a myth?
It keeps going. It definitely keeps unfolding. But here's the tricky part though. When they talk about it being a permanent state, I think I could be speaking too soon on this, because I'm more unfolding is happening as we speak, right? But I would say that when they say being in a permanent state, from what I take it, I can go into that state, not any time, but I can go in that state very often. So I will say it's permanent from that standpoint, as opposed to being in a permanent state of being. So I can tap into that state. I can meditate, and I can easily go into these meditative states, not to the degree of the blowout, but I can go into these real deep meditative states that are pretty profound. But my ego is still there as I'm experiencing it, so it's not like it's a blowout where the ego shattered.
Yeah.
But after that experience, for the next 2 years, it's happening less frequently now. But for the next 2 years, I would meditate, and I'll have another spiritual type experience within that hour. Some of them would only last a few seconds. Some would last a minute. But that minute could be very, very profound. But nothing like an hour, nothing like that. So it'd be like a few seconds to a minute that they would last. But a lot of this stuff happens too. This didn't happen in 2019. It happened prior to. But there's more purification that's happening. So you can develop like rashes and things of that nature in your skin and all that type of stuff. So all that stuff starts coming out of your system, and then you would have these seizure type experiences. So I'd be laying in bed, and all of a sudden my whole upper body just jerks up, like I'm doing a sit up, but I really like a jerk like that. Or sometimes it comes out like this type of thing. I'll be walking, and my face will just do its own thing. So I'll be walking, and my face will just do this. And I'm like, oh gosh, I got to stop it. Come back down again. Yeah, a lot of weird things. I remember one time I was walking to one of my schools, and it happened. My face just lit up, and I had to hide behind a vehicle and wait for it to calm down. And yeah, like a lot of weird things like that would happen. My arm would fly up on its own. So like I'd be walking, my arm would just fly up on its own. My leg would kick. It would kick the thin air. A lot of strange things like that. My chest would beat on its own, so I'd be like, and my chest would just on its own without my doing. Things of that nature, as your body is purifying and dealing with the muscles and the neural connections in your brain and all that stuff. As yeah, a lot of that stuff would happen.
Not a lot of people talk about this, and I think the reason that this is my suspicion, that not a lot of people talk about the physical transformations is because I've seen that physical transformations happens only with really deep levels of awakening. Maybe it doesn't happen to everyone,
Yeah, yeah.
but I've only heard it described like in these more advanced stages. So how did you deal with some of the pains and aches in your body or physical transformations that were happening? What did you do to mitigate that discomfort and get the energy flowing smoothly?
Well, I had a friend. Who gave me these herbs to help me with the kidney piece of it. So when she gave me these herbs 7 years ago, I would take these herbs, and I didn't experience that type of pain until recently. But now when I take these herbs, because I still have them, I still have a bunch of them, but it doesn't seem to work as much because now it's my other kidney that's being affected by it. So those pains are just excruciating. Yeah, that's just very, very painful. All the other stuff I can deal with. I have no problems with the jerking and the seizures and all that stuff. I was because I already read about that stuff prior to. So when it started happening, I was like, oh, that's what they were talking about in the sacred text and things of that nature. But only the pain, the kidney pain itself is yeah. I don't look forward to those at all.
And how often does that happen compared to 7 years ago?
Yeah, now it's like it happens like every 2 weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah. Very painful stuff. So I got to see a urologist in January because every time they can't find anything, but we set up another appointment. They're going to check everything out again and see what's going on there. But yeah, it's very, very painful.
So weird. You and I have a very similar background because not only with the Supermind and the clear light, but I also had an issue with like a burning pain that would appear right in between the two kidneys along the spine,
Yeah.
and then a burning pain in the back of the solar plexus, and this feeling of just really uncomfortable pressure like rolling through the kidneys. And I had that for years until I was able to meet a healer, and he at least got rid of the fiery pain that would just flare up at those two locations during meditation. So after that, never had that as an issue, but there was still some pressure, still some discomfort, but at least like the searing burning, like that was gone after that. So I was very fortunate.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that sounds painful. It definitely sounds painful.
Yeah, it was. It's so wild. You know, I hear stories of people experiencing Kundalini, even in my classes, a particular student where it was like he's described being punched in the gut, and then this actual serpent energy, like as thick as his wrist, starting to move through his body and up to the crown, and it being a blissful experience. But following that were these really awful body pains.
Oh yeah.
And aches just all over the place. So I see it as purification. I had to find someone to help me when I started going through that, and you took some herbs. So I think that's a general recommendation.
Yeah.
Did you see an acupuncturist or explore Chinese medicine for that?
Did all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did the acupuncture stuff, of course, which helped a lot. Helped with the heart racing and all that type of stuff. And I would go to an acupuncturist in regards to my kidney. It's just now that it's been happening again, I haven't seen one. There is a guy who I went to see once. So something was wrong with my spleen one time, and I went to this Qi master, and that was an amazing experience within itself, where he would treat me by not even touching me, and then he would just pull his imaginary string, and electricity would go through that part of my body. All right. So recently I said, "Oh my gosh, why don't I just go back to Master Elite?" So I called up his number, same number, because this was years ago, and but he's booked up till June.
Jeez.
So, yeah, I'm on a waiting list, waiting to see if he's able to see me before then. But I think he could fix it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Until then, I'll probably just go to my acupuncturist friend and treat it that way. Yeah, I have a lot of people who are in acupuncture, who are acupuncturists and chiropractors and Reiki masters and all that too. A lot of people in my personal circle. So I'm going to have to do some of that again, because now it's the other kidney. The left one, which was happening for years, is fine. It's the right kidney. And it's moving into my inner part of my stomach too. I could sometimes feel it like in the depths of my stomach somewhere. But yeah, I really want that to stop. So we'll see what happens.
In the Tibetan tradition, they have these practices with dream yoga,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and the attainment of like the attainment level of that practice is the kind of super mind experience that you were describing, but having access to it anytime a person would fall asleep. Can you, from the super mind blowout that you had, can you really see a path from here to that being something that happened every time you close your eyes?
What do you mean exactly?
Like every time you close your eyes to meditate, you that's what happens.
Yeah, yeah. It happens from time to time. Yeah, yeah. It happens from time to time. So
The super mind blowout that happened in 2019. I mean,
oh, sorry. What about it?
the the
Sorry about
the
that.
the blowout in 2019 where you were totally lost motor function, and
Yeah.
it was the most profound experience of your life. Is there a path to having that all the time or anytime you close your eyes?
I don't think you'd want that. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to having, as much as that was the most profound experience of my life. I'm not looking forward to having that again.
Because of the consequences, like what it did to you afterwards?
Oh no, it's in some way, it's like the ego goes through a bit of trauma, going through that experience, because there's an experience of pure ego death, and the ego doesn't want to die. So to have that experience, the idea, when I think about it, it's on some level, as much as it makes me smile and does all those things, it also frightens
Wow.
me. Yeah, I know it will happen again, but I'm not looking forward. I'm not necessarily looking forward to that. Yeah, when that took place, my it's like my dopamine levels switched. I don't seek out these big blowout experiences anymore. Well, that may be temporary too. I say this now, and then a year from now, I'll be like, I'm back at it again. Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, I'm not looking to have any more of those blowout experiences. It was so big. I think I'm good.
Wow. I love how you say that. You always preface like, oh, it may, my view on this may change within a year. I may not be
Yeah,
saying the
because
same
I've
thing.
said a lot of things where the time went by. I'm like, oh gosh, yeah. I just end up contradicting myself. So like, Morgan, I thought you said. I'm like, yeah, but I'm always changing and growing, and my opinions change and all that type of stuff. So I always have to keep that open. So I don't.
I I had to I had to learn that, and I see a lot of people learn it over time. The I call it the mistake of assuming finality. Like
Oh yeah,
happen
okay.
see it so often. You have this like wild thing that happens, or some very prominent, prevalent non-duality happens, and you're just like, this is it.
This is it.
Total assumption. How do we know it's it? We have no idea.
Yeah, and it tricks you every time. It's like, no, that's not it. As it just keeps going and going and going and going, and to the point where I'm just like, wow, yeah. But I'm at this point now where, yeah, I'm not looking forward to another experience like that. I'm fine with the little tiny ones that pop up here and there. But I still meditate. I still do all my practices. I still do all that.
Mm.
I haven't given it up or anything like that. But yeah, that was so profound that, yeah, I don't. Yeah, yeah.
If it started happening naturally every time you went to sleep.
It would happen. It would happen to some degree while I'm sleeping, or it will happen while I go into meditation, and sometimes it will just happen when I'm just walking. Yeah, but very short though, so I'm able to still function every day because it will happen and it'll just go away. Or sometimes I'll be watching a TV show, and something will just pop up like a bright light or something like that, and I get triggered, and then it comes back.
Wow. The super mind non-duality, not to the
No,
full
no,
extent, right?
I wouldn't say supermind. Just
Okay.
just this is this bright light. I don't know how to explain it. This bright light would just emerge and just go,
I think that's
and it
called
comes back.
vivid. I think that's called vivid luminosity in Buddhist terminology.
Velocity? Yeah, could be. Yeah,
Yeah.
things of that sort. Yeah, so it's yeah, but I haven't had an experience like that in, well, I had one yesterday, but not like that. It was more of a real deep emotional um state that I was in. Actually, that one lasted longer. That probably lasted a good 45 minutes. Just this
Wow.
deep state of my emotions just being cultivated into this thing. Um, Sorry, not yesterday, the day before yesterday. But yeah, so when they happen, they happen. because they always say that don't get attached to those experiences as well. Just whatever happens, let that be okay. Just let it happen. Enjoy it in the moment and just keep it moving. Because if you get attached to it, what happens when it doesn't happen? You think that your meditation is not working, but it's not usually the case.
What is supermind classified as in the yoga terminology? Do you know?
In the yoga terminology?
Yeah, like, so is it Sarvikalpa, Turyatita? Is there like a specific actual phrase for what you experienced in 2019?
Nirvikalpa.
Right.
Yeah, Nirvikalpa. The next one after that is Sahaja Samadhi, which they say it's the permanent state, which I think you can tap into these states over and over again, or maybe your center of gravity is lower, it's deeper. It could be that. And then if you have the experience at the moment of actual death, that's called Mahasamadhi.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, they describe that as merging back into the ocean of Parabrahma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So with waking up and growing up, this is one thing that you touched on in Clubhouse. How did working through these different traumas and maturing psychologically, what was the relationship between that and these very deep awakenings and unfoldings that you were having?
Well, the thing is, they're very two separate things until you reach supermind. So if you reach supermind on the psychological development level, they merge. So the two merges. But they're really just two different things. So you have the growing up, which is the psychological levels of ego development, and then you have the waking up from waking, sleeping, dreamless sleep, Turiya, and Ken Wilber makes it clear that when you have the blowout states, you always come back. He says even if it lasts 8 months, you come back. You always do. But then you have the psychological states and stages. So there's stages and there's states. So the stages in the psychological development, they're broken down as egocentric, ethnocentric, world-centric, and cosmocentric. So the goal for a human being who's trying to move up these levels, the goal is to grow up through the ego stage all the way up. The waking stages, which is what I just mentioned, you can have a waking experience at any of the psychological stages. So you can have it at any of those stages. So you can have a Turiya experience at egocentric, you can have it at ethnocentric, you can have it at world-centric, you can have it at cosmocentric. If you have a Turiya experience at egocentric, you probably come back and say, I am God and no one else. Worship me, because it's egocentric, and that could be very very damaging. At the ethnocentric stage, you may come back after having experience in Turiya and say, only me and my people are the chosen ones, and everybody else aren't. So let's kill them off or something like that.
Wow.
That could happen. At the world-centric stage, you realize that everyone is God or Brahman. Everyone and everything is God and Brahman. Well, every human being, I should say. And then at the cosmocentric level, you realize that every human being, everything, every life form, and everything in the entire universe is Brahman and beyond. So they encourage that that you work on both. Don't just work on the waking up, and don't just work on the growing up. They try to encourage you to do both, so that you can be well developed and well balanced in both sides. So you'll meet people who have the biggest blowout they can possibly have, but they're still pricks, they're still assholes, they're still screwing people over and all that type of stuff, because they may still be at the egocentric stage. Right? They realize that the two, because for many years people have been preaching that when you have an experience of a Kundalini awakening or Turiya, that it will change you. It does happen to some people, but for most people it doesn't. It doesn't happen. So you still have to go through the training of trying to grow up so that you can match up to your blowout experience. At the highest level of the psychological development, that's when the two merge, where like what you were mentioning earlier about with you being your normal self, but you've now integrated all that stuff into your everyday life. And at that point, and this has happened to me too. At that point, I don't necessarily agree with other people's standpoints. They're all partially true. My standpoints is partially true. All that stuff just comes as to one. So I can have a discussion with someone who's a Christian and whoever, and the Christian can be totally upset and totally disagree with me, and I'm listening to him in agreement, because you see how all this stuff is supposed to be integrated into one. But prior to getting to the integral levels of development, when you reach a certain level, you think the level below you is the wrong view. And then you go up the next level, and the level that you're currently at, you think that's now the wrong view, and so on and so on. But at the highest level, at the supermind, you realize that they all have a place within this big soup of what we call reality. So it's a very interesting. I'm studying it right now, so it's a very interesting way of looking at it, because one of the downsides too, when you have a blowout awakening, you're waiting for certain things to change and they don't, and you're like, why? I don't understand this. How comes this is not changing? But at the same time, there's other things that have changed. Some stuff just changed just like that, and other things my perspective on that everyone is right to some degree happened in one of my awakening experiences. After that, I just took on that view that everyone is right to some degree, and it just stayed there. It just stays permanent. So I'm just waiting to see what else happens and see how it unfolds. So I don't like to speak too soon, because there's always something new that's happening. Yeah, but I don't feel like I'm searching anymore. That's true, but I'm still open to the idea of continue to unfold.
And in the yogic literature, so at the stage of sahaja, this is when the practitioner or the teacher begins to no longer experience themselves as a person, correct? Identify as a person.
It depends on how you look at that. I think they still identify themselves as a person, they're just not attached to it. Yeah, I don't think they're attached to it. We like to look for these sensational things that we think is supposed to happen. Some of that stuff could be a bit of a letdown when you're hoping that certain things will change, but it doesn't. It's not really the case, I don't believe. You ask me this 5 years from now, my opinion may be different on that, but it seems like you notice your body, you're in your body, you still care for the body. Some don't, depending on, some don't. But in the integral states of development that Ken Wilber presents, they're presenting that you should try to be balanced in all these areas. You should still have the perspective of being an individual, yet you realize that you are everything. You're all individuals. So at that level, they just work side by side. You don't give up one for the other. You just include. Yeah, that's what it seems like to me at this point.
Right.
You're just including. You're just integrating. Because also in that model, they have quadrants, the 4-dimensional quadrants. There's the there's the I, the we, the it, and the its. So the I is your subjective self, your emotions, that's that sort of thing, your mental states. That's the I. The we is the collective. So me, you, Michael, and Judy, and everyone who's going to be listening to this. That's the we. You have the it, and the it is even though I have a subjective mind, I have an objective body, and when I look across from me, I see another objective body, or I see the computer. All that stuff is the it, and then you have the it, and the it is like the combination of systems, like political systems, economical systems, social systems, religious systems, currency, things of that sort. So they're all broken down. So when you at the integral level, you're combining these 4 dimensions into one, as opposed to disregarding one over the other. So you're supposed to include. So when you start including these 4 quadrants, you start to see the bigger picture of how everything is working and how everything is. And in a sense, that is also, when you combine all 4 quadrants, that is also, in a sense, a non-dual perspective.
So this is the final point I want to ask or get your thoughts on before we move into to the Q&A. So there's, from my understanding and what's happened to me, there were non-dual states, and then there's the experience of mind in its natural being, mind just naturally and inherently non-dual, or like mind and experience, there not being a separation between mind and experience, but experience itself, all phenomena and perceptions being mind, being presence. But not being a state. But like previous cycles were more like actual states, like they're things that you go into and you come out of. But this all is mind is, there's nothing extraordinary about it. It's like waking up one day and then suddenly, like permanently, touching this book is touching presence. Like opening it is opening presence, opening mind. But it's not a blowout. Like it's not anything that is too overwhelming or too intense. It's just the demarcation line between awareness and experience, or between mind and objects, is gone. There's no longer an external world. So from your understanding, would you describe this as just another phase or just another unfolding? And at what point, I mean, I'm not asking, to me, it doesn't matter whether duality reemerges or Ryan reemerges. I'm okay with, whatever happens. But from your studies and from your understanding, what is this? What is this all is mind, not ending, arising?
What is it?
Yeah.
It's all that there is.
well, I get that, but of course, but I meant if you were to classify it right in your in the map, or the way that you've understood things, because it's obviously not the supermind from my understanding and from my past experience of it, but it certainly is radically different than cycles or things that happened before, because now there's just not a center. There's not a reference point within anymore. So I'm asking you from, because you're familiar with a set of maps and a set of understandings that I'm not. But have you heard of this before?
Yes, a lot of it is spoken about in what is it called? Is it Dogen? Am I saying this right?
Yeah, probably, actually, Dogen.
Yeah, Dogen.
Yeah,
if I have that correct. So there is that thing where the goal is not to have the blowout states per se, because blowout states come and go. It's about being in what you just described as this thing, mind. The supermundane is what some people refer to. So it's just super, yeah. So it's super mundane. So it's so mundane that it's like, oh, this is it. Yeah. So
that's perfect description, Morgan.
Yeah. Super mundane. Yeah.
This is what.
Yeah. It's just.
This is why I love talking to people who've been doing this like way longer than I have, because you have you have a larger range of experience. Yeah, I'm 29, so you're much older than me, and you've been meditating probably twice as long as I have. So for me, I still find difficulty actually describing this without, like, people just tell me what you're saying makes absolutely no sense. Like, could you actually just describe this in a way that, people that are not in it could understand it? And what you just said, super mundane, that is exactly how I would describe this. It's like looking at the stars. There's nothing different about the stars, but they're just so miraculous and perfected, and there's no separation.
Mhm.
between mind and any object. But supramundane, that's it. That is, yeah. That's like the quote of the month for me.
Yeah,
So,
because that always
but
stays the same. That always stays. So you can have all your peaks and you can have all your valleys, but there's this super mundane state that just always stays. So you always come back to that. And people around you may think that, oh, this guy, he just lost the zest of life. It's like, no, not really. I'm just, yeah, just not looking for the peaks, because everything just becomes this, yeah, whatever you want to call this.
yeah, for me, I had a similar dark night, these dark night cycles that went on for about probably 3 years,
Mhm.
chasing the I am everything,
Oh, okay.
impossible to chase it. It's like completely, it's the definition of the word grace, right? But spent 3 years chasing that. And one of the things that became really, really apparent, and what ended these kinds of like really big ups and downs that were happening. It was similar to what you described. There would be this big blowout, I am everything, where the sense of self is really expanded,
Yeah.
and in non-dual with all phenomena. But then as soon as it felt like an energetic thing. As soon as the energy toned down, all of this personality stuff and trauma would really come to the forefront, as if that's what needed to be worked through,
Yeah.
through that whole process. And it finally ended when there was this, it's like awareness really turned on itself, and I just stopped. I just realized that I'm chasing my own tail. Like like the presence itself is empty. There's nothing to chase.
There's nothing to
But
chase. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There's nothing to chase. Um,
Though you may choose to just chase it because it's fun.
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
really,
it's very amusing. So you can just continue doing that. You do it happily. Yeah. Because this is what life is all about. This cycle, this never-ending cycle of this thing. And once a person becomes aware of that, it becomes very amusing. At the same time, it's just what it is.
what's your advice for people, surveying my unfolding and yours? There's a specific point of no return. And I'm defining that, I'm calling that here the I am everything experience, the I am everything realization. Nothing is ever the same after that. I'm sure both you and I can
It's very
attest to
true.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
For people who have not had I am everything and who are not abiding in it regularly, like you had cycles of it, how can a person get to that initial gate? I feel that I am and I am everything is really the gate of, it's truly the stream.
So your question is
How to awaken to that
how
initial,
to awaken to that initial thing.
yeah, that initial opening.
It's different for everyone. Like for me, I chose the path of using binaural beats, but it's not the only path. There's many different types that people you hear these stories as you've heard of all these different ways that people awaken. There's definitely no one path. I chose that path because I knew that for me to do this every day, it would have to be that, because I don't think I could sit there every day doing a traditional meditation for as long as I have. That I find it very difficult to do. I do it, but I do it whenever I feel like doing it while I'm doing eunergy. But there's so many different ways. I've heard someone didn't have a practice. This person didn't have a practice, and they were across the street. They realized their shoelace was untied, and they bent over the tie of shoelace, and then boom. I don't know how to explain that. It's not my experience, right? But apparently this has happened. I've heard another person. They were listening to, what's his name? The non-dual teacher, Tony Parsons.
Yeah, yeah, that's him.
She was listening. She was listening to him on the radio or something, and she was cutting up something. I think she was cutting up meat or something like that. And he said something, and boom, she hit it. Not my experience, right? So there's so many different ways of how this could happen. I did the thing that I knew that I could be committed to, and stuck by it. But not everybody has to do it my way.
That point that you just made, you did the thing that you were committed to and that you were able to stick to. That's really the gem. I feel like that's the gem. That's the gem of this entire conversation.
Yeah.
The thing that you're able to commit to and stick with, because
Stick with it.
I think if this kind of deep awakening happens under 5 years, I'd consider that person extremely lucky and very fortunate.
Lucky. Oh yeah, extremely lucky. Yeah, I'll be like, whoa, you did that under 5 years?
Yeah. Because you know, I was talking to a Zen teacher, and he's been practicing Zen his whole life. You know, he has a sangha, and he's been teaching Zen for 50 years. And teachers, as you know, when we're in the back of the meditation hall, we talk differently than, you know, the way we might with the students.
Yeah.
And he was just very candid. He's like, yeah, I mean, I had like a Satori when I was like 24, and that was it. I mean, that's all that happened. And I was like, so nothing since then, like no abiding one mind, no mind. He's like, nope, nothing.
Nothing, eh? Wow. Yeah, it's oh, you know what? I missed out a big chunk of what happened on 2019. A huge chunk.
Oh, share it, please.
Yeah, I don't know why I forgot this. This is very, very significant. How did I forget this? In September of 2019, a guru avatar came to my city to do darshan, and so I went to see what this darshan thing was all about. So I went to see him. He looked into my eyes for like 20 seconds, put his hand on my head, looked into my eyes, and sent me on my way. And then December, that happened. I totally forgot. I don't know why I didn't even mention that. Yeah,
so glad you remembered that.
Paramahamsa Vishwananda is his name.
Paramahamsa
Vishwananda. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've been seeing him ever since. Of course, since the pandemic, he's been doing sessions online. So I may have done darshan with him at least 10 times now at this point. But the first time, it was in person. And in the December, that took place. I feel that there was something that was significant about that presence that really did a number on me, on my nervous system, my brain and nervous system. So I think that was the final thing, because it's the only time after having an experience like that where I haven't tried to seek it again.
Incredible. So it actually, certain structures within you died after that experience.
Yeah, if you can say it that way. Yeah,
like the sexual desire, for example.
Yeah. That may come back though. 5 years from now, you may see me like, you know, I'm like a rabbit. Who knows? I don't know. But right now, that's the case. I don't like speaking too soon, and everything changes. Because you can either go really hypersexual or you can go the opposite, right? So it's like, I don't know what's gonna happen next. Yeah, but after I saw him back in 2019, September of 2019, yeah, that's a few months later, boom. I don't know how I forgot that piece. I always tell it, but
amazing.
Yeah.
Final
so
point.
The point I was trying to make, he had his samadhi experience at age 6.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that happening at age 6. I mean, how could you grow up? That's wild.
Age 6, he had the samadhi experience, and around age 15, I think, he became a guru. Right. I didn't start this thing until I was like, what, 31? This guy, like, yeah, 6 years old. It's different for everyone. All right. And who knows how long he's been working on that through past reincarnations. So maybe that has a lot to do with it too, if, you know, reincarnation is true.
That's a great point. I heard that from a teacher named Mark Griffin. He passed away many years ago, but he was a student of Swami Muktananda, and he said, you can have a teacher who has been in Nirvikalpa for 20 lifetimes, right? He's abided in that for 20 lifetimes. And you can meet someone who's been in Nirvikalpa for 10,000 lifetimes.
Wow.
And they're quite different. The experience of they're both awakened, right? They're both in Nirvikalpa, but one is more, he would say, saturated with the Nirvikalpa.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting. Yeah.
but
Different
this has been fantastic so far. Let's go into the Q&A.
Okay.
I'll have a question, but Michael, anyone listening, if there are any questions, please put them in the chat and I'll read them to Morgan.
Yeah. And I apologize. I'm a little more lively than this, but yeah.
Oh, this has been lively, dude.
Oh, good.
This has been great.
As long as it's good for you. And this is Michael here, right? Oh, he's still on mute.
Yeah, they're going to be on mute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the silence, just bask in the silence while the questions come in. Well, one question while this is getting typed, what's the difference between the brainwave technology that you've created compared to HoloSync and, for example, HemiSync, if you're familiar with that?
I know HemiSync. Well, with HoloSync, their whole thing is the lowering of the carrier frequencies, because the lower of the carrier. How do I explain this? Okay, so a beat frequency is if you play a tone of 100 hertz in one ear and another tone of 110, the center of your brain creates an artificial tone of 10 hertz. All right, so it just makes a difference of the 2 hertz that's playing. But to lower the carrier frequency, which makes it stronger, it raises the amplitude. If I did 100 hertz versus 90, so 100 in one ear, but 90 in the other, the carrier frequency is now lower. So the lower of the 2 becomes the carrier for the other frequency. Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, and that the lower of the 2, that frequency merges with the lower one, and so if this one's doing this and the lower one's doing this, when this is combined, when this higher tone is played with the lower tone, they both become this. So that makes the meditation stronger. HemiSync, they don't do that. They have different products. They're with HemiSync. Their whole thing is the whole journey piece. So they take you and try to get you to journey off into the other dimensions. But they also have other programs too, where it's about doing a regular meditation practice and things of that sort. But their main thing is taking people on that journey. And then with Eunergy does has the lower carrier frequencies just like HoloSync, but Eunergy uses the algorithm of 1, 2, 4, 7, 5. So say for example, 1 is the same as 10, is the same as 100, and so on. Because when you take those numbers and you crunch it down to a single digit number, it's always 1. So if I'm making a binaural beat of I don't know, 100 hertz, that would be 1. And if I have another beat of 100.2 hertz, that's 2. If I do another of 101 is 2. 1.3 is 3. Sorry, 1.3 is 4, and so on and so on and so on. So you gotta create your algorithms to fit whatever tones that you're using, and you have to do the opposite in the other ear. I'd have to show it to you on paper, but it's based on this map called the Map of Enlightenment. One day I'll send you that map, and you can play with it. It's all based on the number 9.
Oh, so, yeah, please send it.
9, 2 plus 7 gives you 9, 3 plus 6 gives you 9, 4 plus 5 gives you 9, and so on. So you got to use the tones in a certain way so that you're always producing the number 9. And if you can produce the number 9, that can help you tap into the all self, the no self, all that stuff over time. If you can bring the brain down to creating the perfect sound, that's allowing your brain, your nervous system to resonate with that sound.
Wow, fantastic. So I got the 2 questions.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is from Michael. I've read autobiographies of yogis and they talk about the large number of past lives that have prepared them for deep meditation work and to be a guru. Do you know anything about your past lives? And interesting how you became a comedian and after running out of material, got the cosmic joke.
That is so funny. Yeah. That the ultimate comedian. Yeah, the comedian and the audience merged together and became the cosmic joke. That is so funny. Yeah, hit it right on the nose. But yeah, the question. Yeah, I'm aware of some of them. Some of them I can still remember. I don't know if I can really get into it because some of the stuff is, yeah, but sure. I'm aware of some of them that I can still remember right now. Being a woman, being a South Asian prince. I can remember being certain types of creatures, and I also can remember my own conception.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And did these particular memories come about through meditation, or was it other work that had them manifest?
Yeah, the other work in combination, not on the meditation on its own.
Right.
Yeah.
And 2 questions from Judy. What's your recommended process using binaural beats and meditation? Like what is your specific process? Is it something that you teach to others and your students?
Well, I'm always home making these beats, making all these different versions. And the people who I work with, depending on what they're going through, I put them on the program. So they just go on the program and they try to, there's 13 levels to the program. It's not on the market. It's just something that I put together and I've been using it ever since. We're in the process now of putting it on the market. We formed an institution with my business partner called K-More Institute. And so right now that's in the works. So Eunergy is going to be a part of that process. But right now, all I do is when I'm teaching, I recommend Eunergy. They use Eunergy, the first level of Eunergy, for the first 6 months. And after they complete the first 6 months, they move on to the second level, and so on and so on and so on. And you do this every day, if you can, for 6 months before moving to the next level.
And would you say this is superior to HoloSync, or it just has a different effect?
I don't want to be biased.
Right, got you.
So I'll just say that it's different. It's different because I'm now with mine. I'm combining it with the math of Marco Rodin, which if you learn the how that math works, it's absolutely mind blowing how this math works. So the difference is with mine, I combine that with mine. But I don't want to go around and saying mine is more superior to HoloSync, because HoloSync was the gateway. HoloSync did so much for me. So yeah, it did so much for me. But I'll say they're different. They're different. I like to believe that, of course, that tapping into the algorithms of 1, 2, 4, 7, 5 is very significant in regards to creating the perfect brainwave to get your brain and your nervous system to resonate and eventually take on a permanent take on not the state, but so that you're able to produce these states on a regular and some level by using Eunergy, by using the math in that.
And what do you recommend for people that have been meditating for a few years and would like to advance their practice?
Here I'm going to be biased. Neurofeedback is amazing. If you have a practice already and you want to advance your meditation practice, whether you're using HoloSync, Eunergy, traditional meditation, whatever, you can advance your practice by doing some neurofeedback training. Yeah, it's costly, but I highly recommend it.
What was your experience with neurofeedback?
It's not that there was an experience. Well, yeah, there was. After when I was doing the neurofeedback training, I was able to tap into those states a little more. So you can feel it. You can feel yourself just like slowly moving into these states and moving out of it, where before that was a little difficult to do. And it also helps with a lot of things too. It helps with mood and things of that sort. So yeah, it's not like you're gonna do neurofeedback and you're gonna have these mind-blowing experiences. It's not like that, but it helps smooth out the stuff. It helps get rid of the disruption in your brainwaves. So you have these brainwaves, and sometimes there's a disruption. Neurofeedback can help you get rid of those disruptions, so you can have a smooth brainwave, a smoother brainwave. There's always something happening in your body that's causing disruptions. So it's not like you're going to get rid of it altogether, but it helps smooth it out more, so that you can have access meditative states better.
Is there a particular neurofeedback modality or device that you recommend?
I do, but what's the name? I don't know why I can't remember the name of this model.
That's okay.
But there's another one. There's another one called Sensei. Right now, they put together this neurofeedback that you can do at home. That has infrared brainwave training, heart variability training, and neurofeedback training all in one. So this is like this advanced headphone that they make, and then you connect it to an app, to their EEG apps, and then you can exercise your brain for 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week, and you can enhance your meditation practices through that.
Is that available yet?
It's not available yet, but they're taking pre-orders. So they're sending out the orders in May of next year.
Wow, that's soon.
Yeah, I ordered one myself, so I'm just waiting for that to come in.
Awesome. Well, I think those are all the questions, unless anyone has any more comments. Man, this was a really illuminating conversation, Morgan. Thank you so much. Where can people find you, especially if they're interested in Yinergy and the brainwave technology you've put together?
Where can people find me? I don't have a website. I don't have any of those things. I have a YouTube channel. I couldn't even tell you what it is, but I update new information on there every twice a week. If you put in Morgan O. Smith /Yinergy, you'll find it. You'll see it. You can find me there. You can find me on Instagram. I have a lot of content there. You can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on Tumblr. Yeah, but all the other stuff, yeah, I just, when you have a blowout, you kind of lose your motivation for a lot of yeah, it's just like, well, these are things I need to get done, and I just don't care to do it.
Yeah, that's absolutely, yeah, that's so accurate. Do you have any final comments or any final advice you want to share with the audience?
For whatever reason why I decided to do what I did, it has been the greatest journey, even though I spoke about a lot of the negative things that happens in there, but I would do it again in a second. So even if I have to go through all those kidney pains and everything to get to experience what I experienced, I'd do it all over again. Seeking the path has been the most miraculous experience of my life. And that's why I can't stop talking about it. I'm usually I'm a lot more lively, but yeah, my head's just, I just feel that, yeah, that sensation of feeling a little lightheaded. But it has been the most mind-blowing experience of my life. I wouldn't take anything back. And if I have to come back and do it all over again, I would.
Thank you for coming on to After Awakening, Morgan.
My pleasure.